Welcome to another episode of The Launchpad. I'm your host, Dave Kluge, and today joined with two great guests as we are going to look ahead at the NFL Combine. This is a huge week that is going to shake up a lot of rankings and help us get a better picture of some of these incoming rookies. So I'm joined with Ray GQ, who you can find over at Destination Devy and the Draft Network, and Daniel Harms, a good friend of the show from FF Astronauts. We're going to be looking at the top four quarterbacks and attempting to rank these guys pre-combine and talking about how this weekend's activities could shake up those rankings. We're going to talk about our favorite sleepers and busts in this incoming class. We're going to talk about who the perceived wide receiver one is, and we're going to talk about the gap between the NFL analysis and fantasy communities analysis and how you can leverage that in your rookie drafts. This is a great episode, so be sure to stick through to the very end of this week's episode of The Launchpad. Who has the most to lose this week at the NFL Combine? That and so much more on today's episode of The Launchpad. As always, joined with two great guests here. We are now looking at episode 62 of The Launchpad. Last week, I was with Jordan McNamara and Chew Russell, and we were giving you some dynasty takes. And today, we're going to be looking at this weekend's NFL Combine. We're recording this Thursday morning. The episode will come out in a few hours, so we're not going to miss too much here. We still have all of the on-field workouts for the wide receivers, running backs, quarterbacks, tight ends, and we're going to help you know what you should be paying attention to this weekend. I'm joined today with Ray G and Daniel Harms. Ray G over at Destination Devy and Draft Network. Ray, let everyone know where they can find you on social media, what you're working on, where they can find your content. You are a machine, man. I see you coming out with stuff every single day, so let people know where they can find it.
Yeah, man, appreciate you having me on, Dave. It's been a long time coming, baby, but you can find me on Twitter at RayGQ, Destination Devy on YouTube, and that's pretty much it, man. I just kind of do my thing in the space. Holler at me on Twitter, catch me on YouTube, and we're just grinding this rookie season, baby.
Yeah, and this is the time of year where I kind of take a back seat and I try to absorb as much as I can because I don't pretend to be something I'm not. Anyone that watches this show, follows me on Twitter, knows that I am not a big rookie guy. I like going on with kind of a fresh slate on these guys so I can really evaluate them after their first year in the NFL. But you guys are the ones that help me get ready, so thank you for that. Also joined today with Daniel Harms, no stranger to the show. This is your third appearance now. Daniel, you are one of my favorite guests to have on, and I'm going to keep asking you until you keep saying, until you finally say no. So get used to it.
Well, I can promise you one thing. I'm never going to say no. I appreciate you having me on. It's cool to be here with Ray and you at the same time. You guys are some of my favorite people to follow on Twitter. Speaking of, you guys can follow me on Twitter at InHarmsWay19. That's where I literally put tons and tons of draft content. We're going to be flowing through the Twitter spheres. Also, rgrfootball.com will have a weekly draft breakdown, and then fantasyfootballastronauts.com, where everything that myself and Jetpack Galileo grind, that we tape, that we put all the work into, will be there as well.
And, you know, so many people take a data-first approach when it comes to rookie analysis. And that's why I wanted to link you two up together, because you give a very different perspective, taking a film-first approach, which I think is really unique in the fantasy football space. Everyone gets so enamored by numbers, and you guys are grinding that film and giving us really fresh takes. So let's go ahead and dive into it. If you haven't already, you know by now, give us a thumbs up on YouTube, subscribe, youtube.com/footballguys, leave a podcast review, and all of that good stuff. But let's go ahead and get into the meat of the show. Ray, start us off here. How much weight do you put into combine performances? I'm wondering, like, when we're watching these guys run, do you care that much about their 40 time or how high they could jump? Are there some positions where it's more important than others? Just help people that are new to rookie analysis know what they should be looking for this weekend.
Yeah, it's a piece of the puzzle. I think it's an important piece of the puzzle. As one of my mentors and good friends in the space, Peter Howard, says, I'm trying to paint the most complete picture possible. And in order to do that, we need all the colors. We need all the crayons. We need all the colored pencils. This is just one of the tools, right? One piece of the puzzle. So while I think the combine is very important to sort of confirm some of the things that the film may have told you or shown you, you just want to confirm it, whether that's good or bad, right? If you think a player's a little slower, you see it at the combine, and you just confirm it. What you don't want to do is double count, right? I don't want to overreact. I don't want to swing the pendulum too far. Devon Achane goes out there and runs fast. Well, I knew he was going to run fast before he ran the 40, right? We kind of knew that, but it is an important piece of the puzzle, but it's just one piece. So I think the important thing is utilize it as an additional piece of information, but make sure you don't swing the pendulum too far in either direction.
Yeah, and another big piece of that puzzle is obviously the NFL draft coming up here soon. That's why our rookie draft guide at Footballguys, we have multiple versions coming out. We got version 1.0 right now. We're going to come out with version 2.0 after the combine. We're coming out with version 3.0 after the NFL draft. Like you said, Ray, it's just a piece to the puzzle. You don't want to put too much weight into it, but there are definitely some things to pay attention to. Daniel, do you have anything to add on that? Things that you're looking for specifically this weekend? Any positions that might, weigh a little bit more heavily than others?
Yeah, when you're looking specifically like for running backs, I like to look at the 10-yard split for the 40. I don't necessarily care how fast you run in the 40. I care. Run 4.6, that's awesome. You want to know who ran a 4.6? Kareem Hunt. He also had like a 1.58 10-yard split, which tells you that he is an explosive running back off the line. And he showed that his very rookie season with the Kansas City Chiefs. He was able to burst through holes and create big plays that you don't need to have that deep speed for. So you want to see those explosion metrics for running backs. For the bigger wide receivers, like say a Cedric Tillman, 6'3", you want to see those explosion, the vertical, all those things to see how he's going to be able to win balls. I don't care if a short receiver goes out there and doesn't hit a vertical. He's not going to be asked to do that in the NFL. So you want to see the 3 cone. So it's all about taking that. If somebody does something you don't expect, like say a Zach Charbonnet comes out, runs a sub 4.5 40, you're like, okay, so that lets you go into the film and say, where does this apply? Is it on tape? Do I see this in your game film? That's really what this is for me. It's seeing something. If you don't see it on tape, you can go back, watch a game or two and say, okay, that was really more of a training method, and they were able to get ready for the combine that way.
Yeah, that's a great point. And anybody that works out or has played sports knows that sometimes you just have off days too. You know, some days you go in the gym and you're just repping and it's lightweight, it's easy. And then other days you're struggling on that first set. So you don't want to put too much weight into the combine because it could just be as simple as that. Somebody's just waking up and they're just a little tighter than they normally are. They're not hitting that speed that they normally can. So I think the big picture is what you guys are talking about, you know, looking at that college film. If you're looking at 30, 40, 50 games that you can watch what this guy is doing, that's going to be a lot more valuable than what he's doing in 4.5 seconds on a track. Now, Ray, I'll throw this question back over to you. Who's a guy that you think is trending up right now that can really see his value go up even higher after this weekend?
Well, I don't want Daniel to get upset because we have both been talking about a player quite a bit over Twitter. I don't want you to get upset here because I may steal one of your guys. I know he's one of them because he's one of mine. But I believe Tulane running back Tyjae Spears is trending up and up and up. And it started during his performance at the Senior Bowl, coming in heavier than he was listed at Tulane. They had him listed at 190, 195. Shows up, he's almost 205 pounds and doesn't look like he lost a lick of explosiveness. Looked like he was even faster than what I looked like, than what we saw on tape. But I do believe, and people aren't going to like to hear this. They're not going to believe it, right? This Tulane running back. I mean, if he goes out there and just checks the boxes at the combine, right? Explosiveness, agility, interviews well. I mean, there's a real chance that you're talking about a kid that can be picked in the second round of the NFL draft, and it wouldn't shock me if that happened. And I know a lot of people are like, what? Over Zach Evans at Ole Miss, over these bigger name players that we've heard about with, you know, from the fantasy football space for years. But Spears is like the quintessential, and this is not a comp, but sort of that Tony Pollard satellite plus running back that can do a little bit of everything. So I think his stock is trending up, and I think it's going to continue to trend up after he performs on field at the combine.
Yeah, we see it every single year. Ken Walker was a guy this time of year that a lot of people were looking at as kind of, you know, a late first-round pick in rookie drafts, and then he started trending up this time of year, went early in the second round, ended up being arguably, well, behind Breece Hall, probably the RB2 in last year's class. So you got to pay attention to these guys that are moving. Daniel, did you want to talk about Tyjae Spears as well, or is there another guy that you wanted to mention that could be trending up right now?
I mean, who doesn't want to talk about Tyjae Spears? When you watch this dude's tape, he's so much fun. Like I'm working on my film breakdown for the astronauts right now on Tyjae Spears, but it's always good to see other people that you know, that you respect, that know what they're talking about the same kind of guys. But there's one guy, you know, this tight end class, which we'll get to eventually, is really good at the top. It's one of the most talented tight end classes we've seen in a while. Luke Musgrave has been all over pretty much everything out of Oregon State, but you didn't hear much of him during the season. He gets into the Senior Bowl and like, look at this guy. He's going to run like a sub 4.5 40, and he's going to have all the explosion metrics. He's like 6'5 plus. He's a really good athlete. And, you know, you get to the Senior Bowl, everyone's like, look at him move. He looks so much differently than everyone else. And when you compare him to the other tight ends in this class, he moves completely different. He moves like a wide receiver in terms of getting in and out of his breaks. He's a very fluid mover. You love to see that for a tight end perspective. Is he going to block well? I don't know. I don't really care. Is he going to catch the ball? Maybe. I don't know. We'll see what he does there. He does have some drop concerns, but the guy's a huge athletic freak. And right now, I'm telling you, he's going to run a 40-yard dash that you don't expect him to, and people are going to lose their minds when it happens. But he has been soaring up draft boards right now, and he's probably going to be somewhere in terms of rookie drafts. He's going to probably sneak into that first round, into the first round, especially with how zapped the tight end market is right now with talent. People are looking to get these younger players with that athletic ability, with that talent on their teams.
And, you know, we had heard about Michael Mayer for years. Everybody was talking about this guy, you know, the next Gronk coming into the league. But now as we're getting closer to the draft and the combine's coming up, we're hearing about Dalton Kincaid and Musgraves and all these other guys. And now it's looking like it's suddenly going to be a pretty deep tight end class. Like you said, we are barren of talent right now in fantasy football. So it would be nice if we get a good deep tight end class here. Now for the other side of the coin, who is a guy that is trending down right now? Daniel, why don't you start us off here? Last year, you know, Isaiah Spiller was pretty much the unanimous RB2 in everybody's class, and then started trending down before the combine, had a poor combine performance, slid in the draft, and was really, you know, didn't do much of anything last year in Los Angeles. Is there another guy that you see kind of following that possible trend this year?
It really, to me, it looks like Zach Evans. Like, he has been a guy who moved around a lot, twice now, playing at Ole Miss, and everyone's like, finally, he's going to get a chance to be the guy. In comes Quinshon Judkins and just takes over as the stud guy, as that first, second down back. And everyone's like, wait, so we know that Zach Evans has all the talent. What's going on? There's got to be more to the story here. We know that there are some off-field concerns. Obviously, I don't have details of that. I'm not in the interview room. I don't know everything that's going on in his head in terms of dealing with all of that. So this week for him with the interview process is going to be very, very big. But also just measurements, the combine, all that stuff, he can get himself going. But coming into this event, everyone is talking about, well, he just keeps falling down boards. We don't know if he can be a guy. He can be maybe a third down back, but I don't know if I can see him being this workhorse in the NFL. Newsflash, guys. Workhorses in the NFL are essentially dying out. They're not going to be everywhere. You got to find value in some of the players, the skill sets that they offer that a team will latch onto to get you some of those, whether it's touchdowns, whether it's receptions. And as a guy out of Ole Miss, like Zach Evans, can do some of that for you. So he definitely is on the way down from what I've seen. The tape is, I won't say it's mixed because I like a lot of what he brings. There's a lot of talk about his vision. I'm not super as worried as a lot of people are, but he offers a lot in terms of the explosiveness that NFL teams are looking for. So while he is on the way down, I'm very piqued. My interest is piqued at this guy.
Yeah, and it's something that we can't ignore this time of year, because we see this every year where guys start to trend down a little bit and some people just ignore it because they're, you know, married to their preconceived takes. And it's not a fun thing to talk about either. You know, this is one of the most important times of the lives for these young men, but unfortunately we do have to pay attention to this, and it's something we got to talk about. So Ray, I see you not along with Zach Evans. Is there anybody else that you see kind of trending downward right now?
Yeah. What's interesting about the player that I'm going to bring up is I think we can all agree, at least today, he's probably a consensus top 10 pick in the NFL draft, but in the fantasy space, Will Levis. And I mean, he's trending down. And again, it's crazy because he's going to be a top 10 pick. Everything that you're looking for, right? You want first round capital for the quarterback positions. Ideally, you want top 15 capital. Will Levis looks like he's probably going to get that, with some people thinking maybe even number 1 overall if the Colts decide to really hone in on him as the guy. However, there are a lot of things that just seem like, as I'm looking at mocks, and Dan, you've probably seen this as well. I mean, there's times, Dave, in Superflex where this guy's falling out of the first round or the back of the first round. So do I feel all of the criticism is fair, for Will Levis? No, I don't. But there are some question marks in his game that make you a little concerned moving forward. But ultimately, what you want is a team to say, I don't care about any of that. We're still taking him top 10. And if you get that type of capital, absent an injury, you probably are going to get a leash and some leeway to either succeed or fail. But to answer your direct question, Dave, I think this is a player whose stock amongst the fantasy space is trending down. But what I anticipate happening over this week in Indianapolis is he's going to interview well. He's going to look the part. GMs and scouts are going to be like, I can take the tools and the traits for this player, and he's going to be a top 10 pick. So it's an interesting dichotomy with Will Levis because the fantasy community doesn't like him, but it seems like the NFL space loves him.
And we always see those types of players that, like, the NFL community and the fantasy community are just leagues apart on, and this seems like one of them. So, Ray, you set it up perfectly for my next question. you know, it seems like there's a clear-cut top 4, and I hope that I'm not, you know, too presumptuous here, but I think that everybody has the same top 4 quarterbacks in some order or another. So rank your top 4 quarterbacks for me right now, and let me know, is there anything that could possibly change those rankings this weekend?
Oh man. Okay.
I know it's a tough one.
This is a tough one, and I'm gonna cop out. And I'm just because here's the thing. I don't have I don't have a top 4. I think all 4 of these quarterbacks are uniquely talented. All 4 of them. I also think all 4 of them have significant question marks and warts. All of them, right? Bryce Young's size, CJ Stroud's ability to handle pressure, doesn't utilize his legs. Will Levis, poor decision making, you know, questionable in that department. And Anthony Richardson, a lot of people call him raw. I'm not going to call him raw. I'm going to call him inexperienced, right? He's an inexperienced thrower of the football. If all 3 of these guys get similar capital, let's just play the game that they're all top 10 picks. All of them are top 10 picks. For me, for what we are trying to accomplish in fantasy football, scoring points, I would probably lean Anthony Richardson as my quarterback 1, right? For fantasy, I believe Bryce Young is the best quarterback in this class. I'm not concerned about this. I'm just not. If that's the foundation of your argument against him, well, listen, he played in the highest preparatory conference to get to the NFL and the SEC for 2 years and dominated with an average offensive line at Alabama, especially this past season. But right now, Dave, if you're asking me, super flex leagues, they all get the draft capital. Which one am I willing to spend that single first-round pick, which we all know the cheapest place you get a quarterback is in the draft? I'm going to bank on the upside and the potential of Anthony Richardson. I love Bryce Young, his ice water in his veins. He's a gamer, right? CJ Stroud put on arguably his best performance of his collegiate career in his final game versus the Georgia defense. And then Will Levis, like, say what you want about his completion percentage, you know, despite how you may feel, there are a lot of tools to work with Will Levis. But right now, today, assuming all the same capital, Anthony Richardson's probably my QB1.
Hey, man, you can call that a cop-out, but I think that was a hell of an answer. Sometimes you don't have to, you know, fit a square peg into a round hole, and it's a tough question to ask. So, Daniel, I'll give the same question to you. You have these guys ranked right now, or is this one of those situations where maybe we just rank them the order that they go in the NFL draft?
You can do that. I think that's putting a lot on team circumstance as well. Like if Bryce Young goes number 1 overall to the Houston Texans, say they trade up, I'm probably not going to be all in on Bryce Young in first year for draft. I'm probably not going to. And I love him. He's my quarterback 1. But I'll tell you what, I have like a 1A and a 1B for the draft rankings. I think CJ Stroud, what he showed in the final game of the season was not just his best tape, but I think it was better. And I say this, no tongue in cheek. It was better than what Bryce Young did in his career. Because he did it on the stage that he did it in, he played. They should have won that game. They should have won that game against Georgia. I fully believe it. And he showcased the ability not only to handle pressure in the pocket, but to make plays off script. The ball didn't die when he got out of the pocket. He was still able to keep that zip on it that a lot of people talk about. Well, Bryce Young gets out of the pocket, you see that arm strength kind of deciphered, goes away a little bit. Didn't see that a ton with CJ Stroud. He has that body type you're looking for. So, you know, I'm right there with Ray in terms of fantasy production. It's Anthony Richardson. He's the guy. What I saw from CJ Stroud for a fantasy perspective, because he's also not going to get the number 1 overall. I assume he's not going to get the number 1 overall pick. I would say CJ Stroud's right behind Anthony Richardson, and then I would go Bryce Young and Will Levis. That's what I would say.
All right. I like it. So we talked about some quarterbacks here. Let's talk about the running backs. Again, not trying to be too presumptuous here, but I think everyone probably has Bijan Robinson as their RB1. Now, when I look at Jahmyr Gibbs, again, I'm not a college scout, but this dude pops off the screen when you watch him play. He is just a stellar athlete. I think he's kind of the forgotten guy in this draft who looks like he could be a stud once he hits the NFL. I'm wondering, Ray, start us off here. Can you make a case for anybody else at RB2 besides Jahmyr Gibbs, or is it him and Bijan kind of in a tier of their own at 1 and 2?
Yeah, I think Bijan Robinson is in a tier of his own as RB1, and I don't care what his 40 is. Some people out there, it could be a 4 or 5. I don't care. Majority of NFL runs aren't 40 yards anyway. No question for me. He's RB1. Let's move on. For me, Jahmyr Gibbs is my clear-cut 2. I think he's the most. Let me not say the most, because there are some good pass catching backs in this class. You know, you got Evan Hull, you've got Deuce Vaughn, who are phenomenal pass catchers, but Jahmyr Gibbs is a I always say this, Dave. There's a difference between running backs who can catch the ball and running backs who can be deployed as a pass-catching weapon. Jahmyr Gibbs is the type of running back who can be deployed as a pass-catching weapon. I think he's phenomenal. Daniel said it in the last segment with the quarterbacks. Because there are so many running backs in this class, I mean, you can go 20 deep, and there's probably 5 different archetypes of running backs. Your early down grinder, your traditional 3-down back, your pat. I want to know where he lands, right? I know people, Philadelphia. I don't know if they would be able to utilize his skill set and maximize what Jahmyr Gibbs brings to the table. You want him in an offense that's going to target the running back in the passing game. Make sure he's a focal point of that. But to answer your question, yes, he's my RB2. I cannot foresee a world in which outside of Charbonnet going out there and doing something really wild that nobody really expects, I don't think there's anybody that's gonna push him off of the RB2 spot for me.
I think you just stole Daniel's thunder, man. I don't know if you saw his
face
there, but I think Daniel's about to talk about.
I had to say that because I love me some Sharps. So I had to say, outside of Sharps going just nuclear, I don't know, but it seems like Dan's gonna go on the opposite side and say he's gonna challenge him.
Talk to us, Dan.
Man, you were setting it up perfectly because you were going to talk about there's no way anybody could come in. I'm going to lay it out because Zach Charbonnet, in terms of a pure running back, he's a better pure running back right now than anybody besides Bijan Robinson in the draft.
I agree.
He's exceptionally good. I think that people overworked the vision stuff. He ran a lot of power, a lot of gap, a lot of pin pull at UCLA. Well, guess what? They love to do that kind of stuff. He's a Big Ten running back. He played at Michigan before. He was recruited to Michigan. And if you watch him, he's like, this guy doesn't belong at UCLA. He doesn't, but he was extremely productive in doing so. And he got lots of runaways because he's still a fast running back and he's 220 plus pounds. He's not just a bowling ball. He's a bowling ball that was shot out of a cannon. He can just actually get going. So not only could he possibly shoot himself into that tier for these NFL teams with a really good performance, I think that a lot of teams will look at that and say, okay, this body type is built to withstand the hits that he's going to take in the NFL. We can run him between the tackles. We can still get him outside. The one thing that I need to see is the 10-yard split, because when you have a guy who's his size, who maybe takes a little bit longer, linebackers are faster in the NFL than they are in the Pac-12. Sorry to disappoint you. They are. And if he can get to the edge and he can get past, use that 10-yard split to burst a little bit more, I'll have much more faith in him, and NFL teams will have more faith in him doing the same thing.
Well, thank you guys for saying that, because I'm looking at Underdog Fantasy. Anyone that watches this show knows that I love my best ball. Right now, Bijan is going at the 1-2 turn. Jahmyr Gibbs is going at the 3-4 turn. And Zach Charbonnet is going in the 8th round. And I just can't stop myself from drafting Zach Charbonnet. When you're doing these 0 running back builds and you can get him as somebody who can, again, not a 3-down back as a rookie. We don't see that too often anymore. But as a guy who is, built for the NFL, I can't stop myself from drafting him in the 8th round. Now, we talked about quarterbacks, talked about running backs. Let's hit on wide receivers real quickly. I have seen rankings with about 12 different guys at wide receiver 1. There is no consensus on wide receiver 1 in this class. Daniel, start us off here. Who is your wide receiver 1?
All right, so I'm going to give you 2 different answers because I have one for my most talented wide receiver in this class, and that's going to probably throw people through a loop, and we're going to start there. Kayshon Boutte is the most talented wide receiver in this class. I fully believe it. And I see it on the tape because of what he can do going to get the football. He has the speed. He has the athleticism. He has the short area quickness. Problem is, something's going on up here. There's some off-field concerns. They're obviously coming off of the injury. There's a lot that rides against him. And right now, he's also a player who's been trending down going into the combine. And we don't know where he's going to land, what he's going to do. A combine performance can really help him. So I think he's the most talented guy in this draft that could be the best. 2 years from now, you tell me he's the best wide receiver of that draft? Yeah. Okay, I believe it. I 100% believe it. The last 2 weeks, I have been waffling back and forth in who I have ranked as my number 1 receiver in this class. And it comes down to what I believe translates not only the quickest, but NFL teams can use the most. And Quentin Johnston has not only the body type to play in the NFL, play the X, play the Z, he can play in the slot, a big slot. The yak stuff that he brings is different for a guy his size. And then the other guy that I've been waffling between is Jackson Smith and Jigba. 2 years ago, I tweeted, I wrote an article a little bit about how being able to create separation is becoming the most important thing in the NFL. You can be the greatest athlete in the world. You could be the biggest DK Metcalf. Do we think DK Metcalf's a top 5 receiver in the NFL? I don't think so. I don't know if Jackson Smith-Njigba could ever get to being a top 5 guy. I don't know about that. But I know right now that he's not only the best receiver in terms of getting open, catching the football, making plays after the catch with short area quickness. He's not the best YAC player. Right now, he's the most polished in terms of route running, defensive understanding, defensive leverage understanding that I have seen the last couple of years, since, in my opinion, since Justin Jefferson coming out of the draft. So he has overtaken Quentin Johnston as my wide receiver 1 in this class based off what he can do right now, helping a team. He's going to be playing probably more of a slot Z/ he's not running his 40 this week. So it is what it is. People want to say that it's because he's trying to hide it or whatnot. I don't really care about his 40. I think he's going to be extremely valuable to a team in the NFL. And I love what he does. I think he's going to be great.
Yeah, and schematically, as we see quarterbacks get more comfortable throwing to the middle of the field, that's when, offensive coordinators are starting to utilize the entire field. And we're seeing guys like this that aren't the best athletes. Amon-Ra St. Brown and Cooper Kupp. Obviously, Justin Jefferson is a great athlete. But Deontay Johnson, he didn't test all that well either. But these are guys that just have the ability to get open on every single level of the field. And Jackson Smith-Njigba, he fits that prototype. So I'm with you there. And it's kind of wild because, like you said, 2 years ago, JSN and Butte, we were talking about both of these guys being potential top 5 picks. And now all of a sudden they're sliding into round 2. It seems like we might be overreacting a little bit. I like both of them a lot. Ray, who is your current wide receiver 1 if you've got one?
Yeah, and I just want to piggyback off of what Daniel said, because coming into the season, Butte was my number 1 coming in, and I hung on for as long as I could, but I couldn't do it. Stuff going on. I don't know if it was the coach. Malik Neighbors is going to be somebody we talk about next year. He's a phenomenal receiver out of LSU. But when you're looking at this wide receiver class, there's no doubt there is no consensus, none. And I don't think we will have any. Let me start with Quentin Johnston, because I believe that everything that Jackson Smith-Njigba can do, Quentin Johnston can also do, right? And he can do that while being 6'4", 215 pounds, that I believe he is going to test like a freak athlete. I truly believe that, right? There are some, you watch the QJ film, and it's everything. What you have to take into consideration when you watch this is, listen, I'm not here to bash on prospects, but Max Duggan was not, the offense was just a little wonky at TCU. So you just wonder why there were games where he would be targeted 4 times. He gets 3 catches, 2 catches. His run after the catch ability, his ability to make defenders miss in space. I believe he's one of the highest in the class with missed tackles forced per reception. It's incredible with Quentin Johnston. I think here's the thing, though. The fantasy community is going to be very weary of Johnston, because as much as we talk about scout the player, not the helmet, he wears TCU helmet.
Yeah.
And have we not been burned? Some guy, I don't know who, like Jalen Rager in 2020, some
Josh Doxton.
some cat named Ray and Rager and Josh. But that is a bias that people are like, I just don't want to deal with TCU wide receivers. They're just like, I don't want to do it. Don't want to deal with TCU wide receivers. For me, as I look at this draft class and then I put the scouting hat back on and get in the mind frame of 2022 and 2021 and 2020, I would take the top 3 of all of those classes: Drake London, Garrett Wilson, Chris, whoever it is, Jamar Chase, Jalen Waddle, Devontae Smith, CeeDee Lamb, Justin Jefferson, Brent. I'd take all of them over any of these receivers in this class. Let's just start with that. So with that being the foundation, all I'm really trying to do is hit a double. If I can hit a double, I don't need to hit a home run with these receivers. If I can just hit a double, have a quality receiver that's going to provide some depth, maybe have a little bit of upside for me in fantasy, I'm happy. And I think the player that I feel most comfortable with hitting that double and getting on base is Jackson Smith-Njigba. I don't care what his 40 is, because his game's not predicated on speed. That's not how he's going to win. That ain't how he's going to beat you, and that's not how he's going to be deployed. He's physical, and some of the things that Daniel did not talk about, he's physical in the running game. Like, I think a team would love to have him on the field because he's going to get after it and block. He can be used in an Amon-Ra St. Brown type of way. I think Amon-Ra St. Brown may be a little more athletic than JSN. JSN's got the size. A lot of the comps that I'm seeing now is Jarvis Landry for Jackson Smith-Njigba.
Okay.
For me, He's my one. I love his skill set, his ability to get open. And Daniel said it best. His understanding of defenses, coverages, where to sit down, coming back, helping his quarterback out, presenting his numbers to create an open space. And he's really good after the catch as well. He's just not fast. That's just really what it is. He's just not fast. He's not a fast player, but that's not how he's going to win for right now for me. And I've waffled as well. QJ, Addison, JSN. He's my one. I'm comfortable with what he's done, and I don't really care what his 40 time is.
Now, we talked about the gap sometimes between the fantasy community and the NFL community, and it seemed like we saw this same thing last year with Chris Olave, where the NFL community was in love with him, and fantasy players were just kind of shrugging their shoulders. He doesn't test well, he doesn't have the metrics, whatever. And it seems like we're doing the same exact thing right now with Jackson Smith-Njigba. NFL teams are tipping their hat that they love this guy. He's probably going to be a first-rounder, but a lot of fantasy players are kind of falling off of him. So I'm glad to see you guys are on the same page, because Kevin Coleman just released a video where he had him as the 105. So, after that top four. So we're in agreement there. Another question I have for you. John Ross still holds the 40-yard dash record with 4.22. The odds of breaking that this weekend are plus 400. Can anyone do it?
That's moving. 4.22 is moving. Keaton Mitchell. I don't know. I don't know if they're 4.22 fast. I would say no. That is rolling. I would say no. Daniel, I'll lean on you on that one. I'd say no, though.
Yeah, I'm going to go no. We know Jalen Hyatt's going to run fast. We know he's going to run fast. But he's got, 4 inches on him in height, I think? You need to be not just short, skinny. And John Ross is short and skinny, and not just the track, too, because we know that the track last year was pumped up. It's going to be a little different. It's not as new as it was last year. So we might see those 40 times fall. I don't see it happening, man. I just don't see it.
All right, got to ask, we're talking about the combine, plus 400, it's a fun bet to throw out there if it hits. But last question that I got for you guys, and then we'll sign off here. I'm going to give each of you the floor to just hype up your favorite sleeper. You might have already talked about him a little bit, but Ray, go ahead and start us off.
Dave, hold on, Dave. Hold on, Dave. Wait a minute.
Talk tight ends? You got time? No, you got time for tight ends?
We've got to talk. You have a question in the show sheet.
I think
who is a wide receiver? We've got. I don't care what I got to do after this.
Let's hear it.
We've got to do this.
Both of us have to talk about the same guy, because I know who he's going to talk about.
I didn't want to run out of time, but Ray, if you got time for it,
I just want to. Daniel, you go. I want to know who you're going to say. Go.
I know who you're going to say.
Who are you going to say?
I laid this out in a little Twitter feed about last week. Jalen Hyatt is the wide receiver that is getting hyped up everywhere. I think he's multiple draft guys' number one receiver. Okay. All right. I want you guys to watch the Alabama tape. It's his best, most explosive. What does he do? Tell me what he does in that football game outside of getting forgotten by Alabama. They never respected his speed. They never put a safety over the top. Every time he ran a deep ball, the safety was in almost closer to the box. Every single time. Off coverage, in the slot. And this is not me trying to just completely crap on this guy. I'm just trying to understand where it comes from. He is not a very fluid mover of the foot. I'm trying. They did not actively try to get him the ball in space. No. The Notre Dame Fighting Irish was using Michael Mayer on little jet sweep touch passes. Do you think Jalen Hyatt saw that stuff at Tennessee? No, because he can't move in space very well. He's not. Like I said, I'm trying here. I really don't want to just go off on this guy, because he's gonna fly. He is going to be probably someone you can still develop. He still has some ways to go in terms of defensive understanding, and that's because Tennessee runs the offense that they do. It's their fault that he doesn't know what he's doing when he's got man coverage or he's trying to find spots in zone. But I don't get it. Ray, you go.
We see it every single year, though. Speed blinds NFL GMs. If Jalen Hyatt goes out and runs a 4.25 this weekend, he's going to go in the top 15, whether he deserves it or not. So I'm with you. I mean, the kid's got wheels, but we see this every single year where speed just pushes people off draft boards. Ray, what do you have to add on Hyatt?
I'm going to try to be a little nicer.
I'm sorry. I couldn't do it.
I do what he does well. He does better than he is very fast.
Absolutely.
If you think that you are going to line up a safety on him or an off corner and think that's going to get it done, he'll shred you. Like that's, and he's an excellent tracker of the football. Like when it's in the air, he'll run it down and go get it. Excellent at that. He's not going to make you miss in space. He's not, short area agility isn't his game. So many times I saw people blow on him and he just falls over. I don't know if he's tripping over his feet. He's falling down. Like he's going to be asked to do like a couple of things early in his career, and that's it. So you better hope you've got a receiver that's got that YOLO mentality that's just going to throw it down there. And my man Damian Parsons said it best. The best way to slow down a Ferrari is put him in 5 o'clock traffic.
Yep.
If you get hands on him, you get physical, you get cluttered. It's almost like he's nowhere to be found. I'll just say this: the player that is getting hyped up a ton, and I love him. I think he's a phenomenal player. But when I'm thinking about a 5'9", 180-pound receiver in today's NFL, and I'm seeing reports he could be a top 15 pick, top 12 pick, I like Zay Flowers.
Yeah.
I like him. I have personally been burned by these players that we see out yakking folks in college. It never translates to the NFL. I thought Rondale Moore, what he did as a true freshman at Purdue, turn on that Ohio State game, I was like, this guy's going to break the mold. Like, there's no doubt about it. Like, Laviska Shenault, Jalen Ray, it just doesn't work out well. And I'm not saying that's all Zay Flowers can do, but you're not going to line him up on the outside. He's not going to play X for you. And I'm curious for fantasy purposes. Would I take 5'9", 180 over 6'4", 215? Quentin Johnston over 6 foot, 200-pound JSN who can do. He's getting hyped up. I love the player. I think he's going to be a phenomenal asset for an NFL team. But for fantasy, I'm seeing this guy go 108, 17, 19. I don't know. That's one that's getting a ton of hype. Love the player, but just feels like a complimentary wide receiver and not a guy. And that's sort of the antithesis of this class. There's a lot of guys, and I'd take all the receivers from the past 3 draft classes over all of them.
And I mean, you know how Twitter works by now. One person hypes up somebody, and then everyone else says, well, if he's getting hyped up, I want to jump on this train in case he does hit. And then it just spirals and snowballs from there. And all of a sudden, everybody's in love with Zay Flowers. That's just kind of how it goes on Twitter. Now that we talked about some guys that are overrated, though, a little bit in your perceptions, let's wrap it up with the sleepers. And Ray, start us off here, man. Who is a guy that you are just planting a flag on for the 2023 class?
All right. It's interesting because this player shouldn't be a sleeper because – he played as a Power 5 school. It's one of the blue blood programs. People know everything about. It's Oklahoma, right? Everyone knows Oklahoma, but nobody's talking about Marvin Mims at all. Like nobody's talking about Marvin Mims. And I just wonder if Caleb Williams, the fact that he transferred out and, Dylan Gabriel came in and the head coaching changed, but Marvin Mims is a quality wide receiver. And I believe that he's probably, with a strong showing this weekend, cements himself as a day 2 pick in the NFL draft. And he's just the type of guy that will look up start of the season and is a starting wide receiver. And you're just kind of like, well, where did he come from? Marvin Mims is starting opposite Justin Jefferson. And not that he's going to take anything away from Jets, but I want players in good offenses tethered to good quarterbacks that are going to throw the ball. The volume will be there. And I think Marvin Mims is just a player that not many people are talking about. My man Damian Parsons, I talked about him the other day. Like, this dude's just good at everything. He may not be special at any one area, but he can play outside. He can play inside. He's good with contested catch. He's good after the catch. He's got good at route running ability. I think Marvin Mims, one of the names that people aren't talking about enough. People need to be on him. And I'll throw one more out there because I just want to take 2. Puka Nacua from BYU.
Yes.
Loved me some Puka Nacua. 6 foot, 200-pound wide receivers. Body control is outstanding. Route running ability. Puka Nacua is another guy that you'll look up and be like, how the heck did we miss on him? Like, why were we letting him slip to the 3rd and 4th round of rookie drafts? Puka Nacua, Marvin Mims, 2 guys that I think are being slept on.
Yeah, I know our guys over at Footballguys, Kevin Coleman, Jeff Bell, Christian Williams, they love Puka too. So good to see that we are in agreement on that one. But Daniel, same question to you. Who is the sleeper from the 2023 class that you want to hype up here?
Well, Ray took 2. I'm gonna take 2. Why not? We got sleepers. If there's one thing fantasy Twitter and fantasy analysts is good at, it's finding sleepers that maybe nobody else likes and hyping them up. So, I mean, Jayden Reed. Okay, Jayden Reed, wide receiver out of Michigan State, is not just a slot receiver. I believe with everything that I saw at the Senior Bowl, he's not a slot only guy. He's probably not going to play X. That's okay. Z, slot return man. Okay. This is a guy who can do a ton in special teams. So he's going to get drafted to a team. We know he's going to get drafted. He's probably going to get well. But this week, she's going to change some minds because he's going to run short area well. He is going to leap pretty well. He's not going to be like jumping out of the gym, but people can be like, oh, Jayden Reed. Oh, okay. Top 10, maybe invert for a wide receiver ish. We're looking at, he's probably going to run a sub 4.5, probably close to a 4.4 flat. And he separated. I want you guys to understand this. When he was at the Senior Bowl, they had some really good DBs there, some really good corner play. He was always open. He was always open. And he catches the ball with the tenacity that you want to see from a receiver. He goes and he gets it. He snatches it out of the air. He's not number one, like Ray was talking about. This guy, he is a great complement to a number one receiver because he can play that Z, he can play in the slot, he can just get open. And then after the catch, he's still fluid enough to make some guys miss with that burst and acceleration. I am so taken by what Jayden Reed does. Really, after his 2021 season, everyone's like, well, hey, Jayden Reed's kind of going up. And then Michigan State goes back to being a terrible offense. And then, people forget about him. The other guy who I've been on since before last year, Tank Bigsby, is my absolute, if he does well this week, I said the same thing about Tajay Spears. I don't know how I'm going to end up with 5 guys inside the top 2 at running back, but I'm going to find a way to do it. If he has a good week this week, there's no telling how high I'm going to rank this guy because he was the epitome of I have nothing to work with and I continuously make it work. That offensive line at Auburn for the last his entire career was awful. It's been awful. And they do nothing but say, hey, you're going to get 20 touches this week. Hey, you're going to get 20 touches this week. He's like, fine, I'll find ways to make it work. He scores touchdowns. He's big. He's elusive. He is faster than most people give him credit for, and he can catch the football. His vision, probably because this is the same thing that happened out of Rutgers for Isaiah Pacheco. That offensive line was so bad, he was constantly trying to make stuff happen. And Tank Bigsby, his vision is a little suspect at times, but that's because he's dealing with guys in the backfield 90% of the time. The tools are there, the body type is there, the athleticism is there. Tank Bigsby is a guy I absolutely love, and I think he could surprise some people this week by a large margin.
Anything I've seen from Tank Bigsby so far has been a ton of fun to watch. I mean, this guy is just an absolute hammer. Well, guys, I could talk with you all day, but we unfortunately have to wrap it up here. I don't know about you, but I'm hyped for the combine now. I'm ready to take a close look at all these guys we talked about today. Before we sign off, Daniel, let everyone know where they can find you on social media one more time.
One more time, you guys, at In Harm's Way 19 on Twitter, on TikTok. We got multiple. I tell you what, my TikTok, a guy who didn't want to be in TikTok. I've got so many clips of prospects up there. Obviously, Twitter is there. RGRfootball.com. I do videos every single week there. And then fantasyfootballastronauts.com.
Yeah, definitely check out the FF Astronauts. They got an awesome film room there that can really help you brush up on some of these incoming rookies. Ray, over at Destination Devy, Draft Network, let everyone know where they can find you on social media.
Yeah, at RayGQ. That's RayGQUE. You can find me on Twitter there. Dave, appreciate you having me on. Destination Devy YouTube channel, doing a lot of dope stuff over there. Wake Up Morning Show, Monday and Wednesday, 7 a.m. Central Time, 8 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. We do a show live, really engaging with the community out there. But first time on the show, first time chopping up with Daniel. Yeah, I appreciate this, man. This was good stuff, man. Thank you for having me on.
Absolutely, and hopefully not the last. Of course, I'm Dave Kluge. You can find me on Twitter at Dave Kluge. Thank you for tuning in, and I will see you next week. Thank you for tuning in. As always, be sure to give us a thumbs up. That's going to help drive some additional traffic to the page. If you haven't already, be sure to subscribe at youtube.com/footballguys. Not only can you find this show every single week, but you'll find the Audible, the Pretend GM, the College Football Guys show, and so much more at youtube.com/footballguys. Thank you so much for tuning in.